So, welcome to Chaos Wargaming, and we're going to be joined in a second by Faye and by Evan. Just gonna
stuff because
hello everybody.
Are we live?
We are live. So, good evening. Welcome to Chaos Wargaming. I'm joined with Evan as usual, and Faye. Thanks very much, Faye, for coming on from Private Press. So, it's been pretty rough in Seattle, right? You've had really bad weather.
Yeah. just this Monday.
Just to mess with any updates you might have been rolling out.
Yeah. So I was doing my final proof on Sunday, middle of the day. Internet goes out. I go, okay, I've got time tomorrow. I can do it tomorrow. No big deal. Internet does not come back until midday.
Oof.
Oh no.
It is,
so I was driving around trying to find Starbucks to up, and I literally uploaded the first war room from Starbucks.
Oh man!
At least
if you guys appreciate me.
That's brilliant. That's a good dedication to the cause. Yeah, we definitely appreciate it. So
that's incredible.
So good evening if you're watching live, if you're watching back on YouTube or listening to the podcast. Welcome. So we're talking, as I said, with Faye about all things to do with dynamic update, the state of the game, and whatever. So first of all, thanks, Faye. I think first of all, thank you for like all the effort that you and the team at PP have put in. Like this update is like been like welcomed with open arms by everyone I've talked to. Like full stop. There's like this crazy little like wave of hype where everyone's just like, they've nerfed this and this in my faction, but overall the fact that like the update has been a huge like step forward for the game. So it feels like you really like breathed a bit of extra new life into the game and made a lot of players very happy. So well done. Thanks.
That was the goal. So hopefully it continues to be true as people actually step into the beta.
That's pretty cool.
I've mentioned this before, but I have to mention this again with kudos. I think you've pioneered something. You've done something no designer in a game community, like across computer gaming, whatever, has managed. You announced a broad, sweeping round of nerfs, and your entire community burst out into cheers. I have yet to see that in any other community. It was a little bit
like the Padme moment in Star Wars, like, you know, nerfs, rapturous applause, rather than as the Empire takes over. It's like, this is pretty cool.
To think it's because they were light enough and they were targeted enough that people, didn't feel like it was a, I'm gonna say Una 2. Everybody says Una 2 moment, but Una 2 was great after the nerf. But anyways, it's not one of those moments of like the Death Archon goes from the end of all games to trash.
To the dumpster.
It went from the end of all games to still one of the best anti-infantry pieces in the game.
Yeah, without question.
Yeah,
it's still in still two of them in 90%
Thanks,
of my
for following us.
Masters list. So they are still perfectly playable.
Yeah. So we'd like to start with. Would you like to quickly introduce yourself, Faye? Give us a bit of who you are and just a brief gaming background for you as well, for everyone that's not like sort of come across you and met
you. So Faye Reppas. I am a developer at Riot Quest. I am currently in charge of 3 games: Warmachine, Riot Quest, and Mopok, and I also work on Warcaster, although significantly less. And I work a lot on IKRPG. Basically, the Warlock class and the Rune Shaper, the Barbarian Rune Shaper, were my big contributions to the most recent IKRPG book. And as far as my gaming background goes, I've been gaming since I was a child. We were always a gaming family. We had I don't know what type of computer, but I roamed dungeons as a single bit when I was 5.
Yeah, I had an Atari, I think, was my first gaming computer.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I was a C6. Actually, no, I had an Atari and then a C64.
Oh, I know. I had a Spectrum before an Atari. I had a Spectrum. This shows my age, right?
It's a ZX Spectrum.
Yes. Yeah, with
not quite that old, but
I wear it well, right?
Close.
Yeah, I grew up in the age of tape cassettes screaming at you while they loaded games. That was my first gaming on the PC.
Oh my god!
I was a spoiled what's the name? I was a spoiled C64 person. I actually had floppy disks.
Yeah.
That's
The first true video game system that we had after the computer was the NES. So and we had Zelda on it, and then not too far after we got the SNES. But been playing all sorts of games. My siblings and I made games when we were children, just for each other. They were far more in depth than child-made games than most people would think. So I've kind of always had that love of building games.
That's really cool.
And other than that, I've been playing tabletops of one kind or another for 2 decades. God, I'm old. Okay, yep, 2 decades.
I'm pretty sure I'm the oldest on the podcast, so we're all good.
I know, but it always comes when you realize that you can say something. When you can say something about yourself in another decade, you're always like, oh God, I just went from 2 to 3, or from 1 to 2, or is that
the worst is when you can go back into a previous decade and look at the models you painted, and they were not very good.
Yeah, I can say I was born in the 70s, so I think I just walk away, from the table at that point.
My first Lizard Man army that I painted when I was 16 was miserable. Oh my god, so bad.
My first models painted were a unit of plague bearers, and they looked like the exact walking pieces of shit they were meant to be.
Awesome.
And
so
I still have them.
So what other games do you play at the moment then, Faye? Do you have time to play much else?
Not really. I don't have a ton of extra time. I mostly game on the computer. Right now I'm playing the newest Pathfinder game, Path of the Righteous. Really good if you like really, really crunchy games.
That's cool.
If you don't like really crunchy games, do not play it.
Like Pathfinder as in D&D Pathfinder, or?
Yeah. Pathfinder 1. So it's maximum crunchy.
Yeah.
I love the game. I absolutely love the game as a tabletop. I've got a constant Pathfinder game running, but I must say I absolutely hated the computer versions by Owlcat. It's Pathfinder. It's Pathfinder if your GM is an absolute prick.
Yeah, that is exactly correct. Everything is completely crazy. It's all maximum. It's all you have to metagame literally everything or turn it down to the lowest setting. Those are your two choices.
Harsh.
Yes.
Harsh to the max. That's cool. So if you've not got a lot of time beyond that, do you do much painting, or do you enjoy painting? So obviously, I love my painting. Evan, you're not a big painting fan, are you?
Me, I'm only. I'm first and foremost a gamer. I want to paint. I want stuff to be painted. The game is a better game with painted toys.
Yes,
I firmly stand by that.
So I'm going to Warfare Weekend next week, and I want to bring an army, and I'm like, okay, the only army I can bring is trolls because it's painted. Unless I bring an unpainted army, which is probably what's going to end up happening. Because I don't even have that many trolls painted, right? I paint exclusively for tournaments, right? So I never go to a tournament. If I was in Warfare Weekend and not just playing for fun, which is what I'm going to do, I'm probably going to play one game after hours every day, and that's going to be it. But if I was in the tournament, I would go 100%. It has to be painted. That's my mandatory rule. And I would be painting over the course of the next week to paint 50 models, because that's how I paint, right? I take out a week and I just do the craziest cram painting of all time.
Yeah, I've definitely been there, and I'm to the point now where I'm enjoying painting, and I'm trying to avoid doing batch, which is why my conversions is sitting in a box, and my Grimkin is mostly painted. And we've got 3 events next month, so I'm I need to paint up like a couple of beasts and 2 witchwoods, and I think that's it. I'm done. So it's a lot easier for me.
Nice.
I'm so sorry. I'm forcing you to paint witchwoods.
Yeah, although
I mean, I've taken out an abandoned witchwood to paint as well.
Yeah, you've already had one painted, didn't you?
Yeah, I've had the second one unpainted for like 5 years.
Yeah,
I think you and I are the only people with painted witchwoods going into this update.
Yeah,
I have one painted witchwood.
I don't even own them, so I couldn't find them in any of like the UK stores. So I've had to like one of my mates is a designer, so he's basically designed me this creepy tree until we can actually get real ones. But I'm super excited to be playing Grimkin again, which is nice. They're like my favourite faction. They have been like since I got on them, which is cool.
I wanted to bring Grimkin to Warfare Weekend for fun, but I think I'm going to end up bringing a Cross 2 list. Maybe it's Cross 2.
Cross 2 just in Mercs or a cheeky
in Leyleys.
Oh, okay.
No, not Infernals.
That's the only time I played Cross is Infernals, and I really enjoyed it.
I really like him in Leyleys. And one of the reasons that I really like him in Leyleys is that you get, incinerators with Dauntless Resolve.
Yes.
Which is just, it's a thing.
Beefy.
And Choir to upgrade your swappers, because you should have nothing but swappers in that army.
Yeah, that makes sense. Cool. We just got a couple more questions about you. So, if you could choose the next faction today, and you didn't have to worry about the rules, the complexity, the production, what would it be? You just plucked it out of.
So, some crazy things just got announced for iOS, and the answer is the crazy thing that just got announced for iOS. I desperately want the next generation of iOS. It's going to be super, super cool, and I'm not going to get into the specifics, but that is the army that I want us to make next.
Someone else was asking about, literally about that. They were saying with the changes, the things that are coming up in IK RPG to do with iOS, will that be spilling down into the Retribution or something different?
So, suffice to say that the Retribution is no longer the Retribution. They are completely shattered. Whatever comes next will not be a Retribution army.
Yeah, it kind of eliminates the point. I don't know. I'm not going to talk about it because I don't know if people watching haven't seen what's happened. I've read a bit. So yeah, if you're a rep player, if you're interested in the lore, go and look it up yourself. It's not my fault. Basically,
it is not your fault. It's 100% Soul's fault.
Yeah. It's cool.
We talked about this so much because it's such a big change for iOS, and it's such a fundamental step away from the slowly decaying iOS and world, because now it's actually kind of stable, right? If you're okay with having nothing but soulless babies, it just depends. Are you okay with that or not?
Yeah, why not? All right, let's have a look. The next one is who out of the PP staffers would you say is the best player from Warmachine, and what do they play?
Oh, it's me. Yeah, it's me. It's me just because I'm the only one among the PP staffers that have been playing consistently week in, week out for the last year. Because my playtest team is all well, that's not true. Lauren is part of my playtest team to some extent. But it's all non-PP staffers, right?
Yeah.
We use other people from the community mostly. And then Travis, because Travis is amazing, and his grasp of the rules is better than mine. So,
yeah, I've had a couple of really nice games with Travis over War Table, which has been really fun.
Yeah, he's a really good guy, and if you see Travis at Warfare Weekend, just tell him that he's doing an amazing job. That's all you need to do. That's it.
I'd probably echo that with if you see any of the PP staff, go and buy them, or offer to buy them a drink, or be nice to them and say thanks for keeping on making this game that we love, which is cool. Lore wise, so anything to do with the Iron Kingdom, who's your favourite character?
So my answer would have been different before Requiem. After Requiem, I'm actually really liking Queen what's her name? Cariana of Cariana. What's her name? Katarina, the queen of Lael.
Yeah.
She's gone from a childish queen that is toothless and the only person that matters is Ashlyn, to somebody that's actually running the politics of her country effectively. So she's had a lot of character growth, and I actually really want to see some more story focused on her. I desperately want to see, at some point, Kalandra, who is kind of the ultimate good guy of the Krills, right? She's a really kind character. I want to see her just get so angry she starts to like do crazy things that Dunia we've never really highlighted amongst a life goddess of Dunia, which is like creating horrible viruses and like plagues and stuff. Like that's part of life too. No, I would totally love to see that happen.
Oh, that's awful, because it's always been a bit of a standing joke that the trolls are the only actual good guy faction in the entirety of the lore. Like, every single other faction are just a bunch of bastards. Some of them twirl their mustaches and some of them don't, but it's the same. They're all a bunch of bastards except for the trolls, who are just the eternal victims. Like,
yeah,
for them to go all bad guy as well, like, leave one good guy around.
No, I mean, there's not, like, if her answer is, if somebody goes in and destroys the Krills of the Glibberwood, say, that hasn't happened, could happen.
Yeah.
But let's say somebody does that, and then Kalandra just says, you know what? I'm destroying a city. You guys get to lose a city as it just falls into plague and ruin.
It would be interesting.
And you know, she's still kind of the good guy at that point, right? She's like, you guys massacred us, so we're gonna, you know, do some reprisal at this point, as opposed to just defending ourselves.
Leaving behind infected blankets as they flee, and then if whoever comes in and takes over happens to get sick.
He doesn't need to leave behind infected blankets.
You got to talk over the top of it really quickly to what's the name? To describe genocide as still the good guy. Like, you can do it, but you got to speak really quickly while you do it and move on fast.
Yeah,
it's all about the PR.
It's kind of that rule, right? Who is it? Oh my god, real person. You can only be cruel as a ruler once, and using cruelty more than once will just make you a horrible leader. But you do have to use it once. And I always thought, like, at some point, the trolls have to be cruel once to really prove their point that they could just ruin parts of the Iron Kingdoms.
Oh, that's kind of cool.
It.
It's kind of cool. It's not something I thought about for them, so I like that. Gotta say it. Right, so let's jump into this little thing that happened recently of 700 and something updates. Just a little bit of work.
Yeah.
So
about 60% of the game.
Yes, it's a very sizable chunk. So Evan, you had a couple of questions. On this line.
So my first one is, I mean, what on earth drove you to this undertaking? Because you know that as well as you ever do it, you're still going to get a lot of flack for it. It's a massive job and guaranteed to get a mixed, hopefully overall positive, but guaranteed to have a mixed response from the community. What goes through your head that you say, I want to do this anyway?
So what went through my head was that the last 2 years of Warmachine, which granted have been during COVID, have been very stagnant. Even new releases haven't changed the meta significantly. Every once in a while you get one new army. But there hasn't been a fundamental meta shift since the theme being Apocalypse, right? That was even Oblivion wasn't really that big of a meta shift. It just added some stuff. And that's what I want. I want a meta shift. I want to see everything change. But I also want to target everything in a way where I can keep as many things as possible in known quantity. And that means that you're attacking one specific stat, which is point cost, because that keeps the model a known quantity, and then you can move it around. And if the rule up front was I can't change points significantly, like say I can only do it to like 10% of the game. If that was the rule up front, this wouldn't have happened. You can't do it. You can't change that many things at once if you're targeting big rules.
Okay, interesting.
But as far as the actual impetus, this is the thing that I've wanted to do to Warmachine since I had any control over anything. It's like it's basically what I did to Mompog too, right? I took 10% of the game and said, hey, let's change that 10% because it isn't performing well. This is obviously way more because Warmachine has been around longer.
Yeah.
It's gathered more baggage.
Yeah, so then very much related, what does success look like? What will you be looking at and seeing in 2 months? Yes, this is great. No, this needs more work, but kind of at what point would you say, damn, that went well?
So if in 2 months I see a battle group heavy army playing against an infantry heavy army, and both of them having fun and the game being close enough to equal, that would be success, right?
That's cool.
My biggest problem with where Warmachine was before this update is that it felt very, very much like, solos were the dominant. They were 50 points of your army.
Yeah.
Obviously, 30 points of your army was always going to be battle group, because it has to be. And then the rest was like support and maybe a single unit. And that was every army. And that was not good. It took any variation in the way that armies look away from the game, which is not good.
Yeah, I fully support all of that. I think I set myself up for a little bit of disappointment because I particularly would love to see more single wound infantry on the table. Are you expecting to see much more of that yet?
I hope that we'll see some of it, but I do agree that single wound infantry is one of the biggest problems, and I just don't know how much we'll have. I took an obvious step in the direction of allowing single wound infantry to exist, but I don't know if it was enough.
That's fair.
And we fundamentally won't know until the meta settles.
I mean, that's still going to take months. There's no question about that. That right now it's a lot of guesswork. I imagine you've got a lot more playtesting behind this guesswork than I do, but still, there's a lot of guesswork involved.
There's a lot of stuff that's painfully obvious when you open up the database, and you look at things like combined range units. Combined range units have been having problems all Mark III because they're too expensive.
Frankly, most of Mark II as well.
Yeah. So, it just becomes this obvious thing that anything with combined range, unless it's doing something really weird with that combined range, can just go down by 2 points. And you don't even have to even think about playtesting that, because you just know that combined range isn't working.
Yeah.
So, literally, it is impossible to playtest as much stuff as I change. And
no ways.
A lot of it has literally zero playtest, right?
Yeah.
Not a lot.
That's
enough
fair.
of it has literally zero playtest. But there are things that I'm just it's very obvious that they can go in this direction and the world won't explode.
Yeah. That's fair.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think it's easy enough to theory craft, and when you put enough time into the game and you scrutinize it for long enough, you can make these leaps of logic without having to play through games to get to the same result.
That's
fair.
I think that's also part of the power of your choice to address most of it through points changes. That, if you were to give, I don't know, power swell for some god-awful reason to Reeves, so they can hit in melee and range. That's a massive change. You can't just do that on a whim. That would need playtesting. But
if so. Warcasters in general got a lot more non-point value changes, There were a few armies where point value changes were just possible across the board because they happen to have a lot of really low warjack point models. The best example being Signar, I think, where I could just give them, half of a jack just by increasing their warjack points, which is a lot. But outside of Signar and a couple of others, Warcasters really need specific rules updates to make them function. And if I were to do what I did with Warcasters to everything, either you would see this would be targeting 20% of the game and would take 6 months, or it would have taken 3 more months. You'd be looking at this happening in January.
Yeah.
Or I would have to just really hope that I got it right.
A lot of hoping for some pretty broad sweeping changes.
Roll the dice. That's cool.
Yeah.
So you touched on it earlier. We got a question about which one from one of the people watching the show was, can you talk about current playtesting specifics? Do you have any intention behind it, particularly what do you look for, and how crucial is that to getting a better balance for the game?
Yeah, so when we're designing new models, one of the best things that I've been able to do is work directly with my playtesters. If all you do is collect data and feedback, I found that it doesn't work as well. And I've been changing the playtest style because I'm also in charge of playtest constantly, and now I'm kind of at the point of saying the lead of every group has to work directly with their playtesters and talk directly with their playtesters constantly. And that's the thing that I've changed with Mompoc and with Warmachine that I think has gone really, really well. It's going to also change with Riot Quest, but there just hasn't been any Riot Quest playtest for a little bit.
Yeah.
But that's the one thing, just really working directly with my playtesters and talking with them constantly is the thing that's really helped me.
Oh, that's fantastic.
So we got a couple of other questions about the actual update. Did you put particular focus on legacy models, or is that just a thing that just happened as you went through the process? Because obviously a lot of the older stuff is now.
So yes and no. So what I did, 3-4 months ago, whatever it is, I don't know what it was, when I really started this project, it was about 4 months ago, I went through War Room and I clicked on literally every single profile, and I looked at the model and I gave a gut check. Does this model feel appropriate? How often have I seen this model in the meta? And do I know exactly what this model does? And sometimes the answer is I don't know exactly what the model does because I'm not an expert in every faction. So then I go to my playtesters to talk about that model and understand it better. Yeah. But that was my first step, was saying this needs changes, this needs changes, this needs a nerf, this needs changes. So on and so forth, going all the way through.
Yeah. So just on that, when you say what you've seen in the meta, how do you actually keep track of the meta? Because obviously it becomes difficult, from within privateer offices.
Yes. So the meta, it's usually tournament results based on kind of the data, right? You get the tournament result data from some of these tournaments, especially from a lot of the war table tournaments that have happened over the last few years.
Yeah.
That data is very helpful because it tells me, these 7 armies are at the top and they don't need touched ever. And then taking some of those models, and while we're playtesting other stuff, we put one of those tournament lists on the other side, so that I could get a better feel for those really hard lists that are appearing. Yeah. And the other benefit is that I used to be a tournament quality player. I'm probably not a tournament quality player anymore. I could probably get back into it, but it would take me about 3 months of playing constantly with an intention of competitiveness. But I just don't play that way anymore. For my personal games. My personal games are all casual at this point. But, I can still cycle into that mindset. And I was doing, solid top 10% of most of the local tournaments that I went to.
Right.
Never really going all the way and winning, because I usually use Dark Horsey kind of stuff, because I just like Dark Horsey kind of stuff. But that's me. But I can jump into that mindset really easily. And some of our developers don't tend to jump into that mindset quite as quickly.
Right.
I think there's got to be a bit of value in that, of having the different sides, because obviously you need to develop the game not just for the competitive players, because there's got to be a huge audience that just play in their friends' houses and at local clubs and never go to like a big convention. So yeah, I kind of like that. I appreciate that. What you said about Dark Horse is a perfect segue though. So one of the questions was, do you think of the things that have been updated, is there a particular Dark Horse that you like that you haven't seen people excited about online yet? That you're like, oh, wait till the penny drops of how this works with this.
Oh, jeez, that is such a broad. So I've just been making lists. I play mostly Mercs, specifically some Rulik and Lely's Resistance is usually what I play in Mercs. Sometimes Flames, because Flames and Lely's Resistance kind of overlap to some extent. And then Trolls and some Grimkin, although I haven't been able to play them recently. But, that kind of like really broad thing has focused me down into a very specific set of, God, I want to see Borka on the table, because he can be a monster with 9 Fury. And I want to see him just tear apart a Jack. That's going to be fun. I still, he got effectively 4 Fury. It's a really big risk to constantly give him that Fury after a while, because you'll be in the middle of the board and you could lose it really easily. But for very likely one turn, he kind of has a pseudo feat of going up to 9 Fury. And it actually being useful and not just a waste of time. Because if you do it on turn 1, it's kind of, you can't do it. If you do it on turn 2 and you're not engaging, it's not really useful for anything, because you can't use all of it. But if he ever gets that turn 2 alpha or turn 3 kind of counterpunch, he's going to be just a monster and almost impossible to kill on the butt end, because he's still probably going to have 4 Fury.
After he's done all the work.
After he's done killing a Jack, he's going to be like, yeah, now I'm sitting on 4 and I'm effectively Fury 7, so I get I still get to pick up. I have 4 transfers and potentially picking up 7 Fury.
That seems pretty solid.
That's solid. That's really solid.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Right. This is like a, I guess, even broader one. What's your favourite change that's gone through? If you pick out just one thing and you were like particularly proud or happy with, I know you said you were really happy with when you sent us through the spoilers. Which one? Oh, it's the Iron Lich Overseer that you said you were really. I was
super happy with that one, because it was such a small change that was so cute and interesting that it might see the table. But just making that the in case anyone doesn't know, the Iron Lich Overseer, I changed to Soul Taker so that the Warjack will also give the Iron Lich souls for things.
A bit like Gatsby 4 has, right? Basically.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
I really like that.
And he went down by points, which happened to all the Jack Marshals. They all went down by either 1 or 2 points, generally speaking, unless they did something non-Jack Marshall-y already. That was amazing. Yeah. So I think that he's got a lot of viability in running either a gun, potentially something like a a crabjack of some kind, potentially, or running even something maybe crunchy in melee. It's really interesting.
My local TO has been running Ironlish Overseers in his lists for like months at least, and he runs them with Seethers. It's like
the Seether was always my go-to as well.
Yeah, the free charge, and then you give it an additional attack with the bonus.
Yeah, it's and +2 strength, and it's solid.
Yeah, it's very interesting.
Back in the days when stealth mattered.
But if I'm talking about one global change that I think is obviously right, it is reducing support costs. Like, you look at every single Warcaster attachment, it went down by 1 or 2 points.
Yeah.
Across the board, there's also other support models that went down by a little bit, but there's a lot of those kind of things where I think that there was too much support bloat in the game, and it was becoming very nonsensical to spend 20 points of your army on the other 80 points. Which was what was happening.
Yeah, support is theft. Well, the 2-point succubus definitely waves and says thank you. That is a strong choice.
A lot of those, the Rune Bearer, Marquette, the Squire, all of those going down to 4 points, so you can theoretically choose them as non-rec options. Although you probably still will choose them as non-rec options.
Probably still, yeah.
All of those are very, very interesting because they're so strong. The Iron Lich, why can't I think of their name? Iron Lich Council, the attachment. What did it go down by?
The Wither Shadow Combine.
Yeah, Wither Shadow. I think it went down to 2 points.
It went down 2 points, 7 points. They're in another list I built last night. Yeah,
which they're a very interesting support unit because they can get a little bit of work done by themselves, and they offer so much support.
Yeah,
they offer a lot. Yeah. They offer a lot. They were just always too expensive to really throw in. So exactly that. But that actually does lead me to a related question. Then, do you have any plans for looking at particularly a bit of a theme rework? Where I look at a lot of themes. Okay, and in the factions I play, I particularly point out Primal Terrors and Black Industries, where requisition options are either really poor or really limited. I think, like, for example, the Hellmouth change was great. Like, that should never have been a rec option, absolutely. But it leaves the theme really light on viable rec options.
I've heard people say that, and then I go, but what about these 3 ogres that you could take in literally every army and are going to get you 13 points? And 13 points is a good number, right, in this world.
Well, it is, except that, I kept wanting to build the twins, so I can't take Amok. But yeah. And if the twins... And if you don't like, if you're not taking UA, if you're going chosen heavy, I actually don't want to get into too much detail. The basic point is, are you looking at a bit of theme rebalancing where some themes feel like they're a little shy?
I think I would actually do it the other way. Which is knocking down all of the best themes with their best requisition options. And I'm relatively okay with requisition options that are very, very specific but give you extra points. Like 3 Gallows Groves. I'm pretty okay with that one sticking around forever.
Yeah, triple Gallows, 2 Harriers, that sort of thing.
Yeah, you're not going to want that in every option that you have. You're not always going to want to press that button. And when you do press that button, you're not getting a combat solo.
Yeah.
So... every time those kind of things happen, I'm pretty happy with them. But the thing that I think... So when I started this one smaller medium base model, it started at 6 points.
Right.
6 or less points. And I realized that didn't do enough. So I knocked it down to 5 points. And then I realized that I kind of want to knock it down to 4 points.
Yeah.
Which the world would explode if I did that. But
But Black Industries is sitting there anyway.
yeah, there's definitely there's something to be said for going back through and even knocking down some of the 6-point options into as long as they're super specific. I'm not too worried about them, but some of them aren't specific enough, like ghost snipers aren't specific enough.
Right.
Those kind of things. I think 2 Kravitz is still fine. I think 2 Gremlin Swarms is still fine. But the Malady Man unit, maybe not. Right?
Maybe a bit much. That's a strong support unit.
No, it's fine. Let's move along. I need me my Malady Man.
That's fine. Pay the points. They're right up there with the helm off. I'm alright with that.
Yeah, but yes, I do agree that some themes are getting a little bit more than other themes, and some of that is intentional. Some of that is this theme is bad. It should get better rec options.
Get some better stuff, yeah.
But some of that is just left over because I wasn't able to change enough in time.
That's fair. Yeah.
And get it appropriately tested.
Yeah.
So, I think it would be the opposite direction. Instead of bringing lists up, I would bring other lists down.
Would you kind of look at that with the actual theme benefits? So where some are giving Pathfinder to all the Jacks or Gang Fighter, and then some are giving something that feels relatively minor, we get Serenity on Gremlins as one of them, for instance. I don't know if that's
let's all admit
enough, actually.
that Serenity is the smallest of benefits.
That's
a free corpse token.
Exactly. That's not the real theme benefit of.
No. I was grasping for something that I don't really care about too much.
Okay. We get the idea.
Some of them seem
yes.
much more impactful than others at the moment. Is that something that's going to get looked at, or you'd like to get a look at?
If I get a chance, I would like to rebalance theme benefits.
Yeah.
I like theme benefits that are impactful and interesting, but don't necessarily
don't make it an auto choice.
Ruin the game,
yeah.
Right? Jaws of the Wolf is Jaws of the Wolf. Yeah, no, Wolves of Winter.
Yeah,
Jaws of the Wolf.
Doom Reavers, yeah.
Which
one's
Doom Reavers? Whichever one's Doom Reavers.
That's Wolves of
Winter.
Yeah,
Wolves of Winter.
Yeah. Wolves of Winter is a very interesting theme benefit that's very, very powerful. But constraining its everybody gets to potentially be threat range, whatever, was one of the better changes here that I think if I were to choose, most themes would have something like that. Something very interesting, something very different.
Yeah,
that's a side grade more than a nerf. Yeah.
Yeah. Power of Dunia and Wild Hunt doing -1 to Animus. That feels very cool and interesting and very themeless defining. That I really, really like those ones. And would probably keep those around, and that would be, to me, that's almost as powerful as Wolves. But they probably each need one extra small thing, which they each do currently have one extra small thing. So
that'd be super interesting to see. Themes getting a little look some way down the line.
I definitely want to have a chance to look at Pharaoh again. Right, I did what I could with the options that I had at hand, but I'm worried that it's still not going to get played. So.
Yeah. One of the the listener questions is can you tell us about plans to address models that might have needed more of an in-depth look to bring them up to speed? So, for instance, Midas.
Midas just
look at that
nothing.
segue.
And the reason that Midas got nothing is the same reason that Tristan 2 got nothing, which is I couldn't figure out a good, quick solution that would keep them as a knowable enough quantity.
Yeah.
To change them, right? So, sure, I could dump Tristan's entire spell list and give him a new one and make him good, but I would have to then playtest him a whole lot.
Yeah, you'd just be throwing him out there and going.
I didn't have the time to do that.
Yeah.
So, those are the kind of models that I have to sit there and I have to think, okay, can I do this in one small tweak? If not, then I probably need to move on. I think Thyra
That's a reasonable approach.
Is the most exceptional, where she got the most changes.
Thyra got a big change.
Me and you were super excited about her. Right?
I've been shocked that none of the Menoth players I speak to are particularly, jumping up and down. Like, I almost want to start Menoth just to play Thyra. She looks amazing.
Her entire module, that Daughters of Flame module, that was one of the ones that I thought about, and I had enough time to sit down and think about it. Because it was early on in the update. It was 4 months ago. And I had enough time to think about it. But when I got to some other factions, I went, okay, Midas probably needs not only to be better himself, but have like 1 or 2 units playing into his game, which means those units need to also change. And I just didn't have time or a good idea immediately that came to me, which was for Daughters of Flame. It was just, I have a really good idea. They all move constantly, right?
Yeah. And then, as soon as you're modifying one unit for Midas, you need to make sure it doesn't throw, I don't know, Maylock out of whack.
Yeah. Okay, that makes sense. No, that's really cool. That's a good answer. So this is like 100% my question. No one else is. Do you think Arcana are due a relook? Both like having new ones or rejigging existing ones?
Some of the Arcana are fine. And Arcana in Trumps specifically are very weird because each Grimkin caster has 3 feats.
Yeah.
So each one can't be as powerful as a regular feat.
Yeah,
absolutely.
So the short answer is I would like to do some minor edits, certainly. But the long answer is that if I were to do really big sweeping edits to Arcana and try and really nail them down again and figure out exactly what that right balance is, I would worry that I would have to put the entire army into playtest.
You'd
have to put every caster.
It would definitely have to be through playtest. There's no question. Just as impetus behind that, I mean, I think a lot of the reason behind that is you play a lot of games with Grimkin, where the weakest Arcana you have by far is your trump, which just feels weird. It's not that it doesn't, play well. It's not that it's not okay at the table. It just feels weird that the one you can throw away and ignore is the trump Arcana.
Yeah.
Yeah. If you gave me Grimkin now, the thing that I would do, and nobody had ever played with Grimkin before. It was a new army. The thing I would do is I would start with the Arcana. So I would design 10 Arcana and say these 10 Arcana are the backbone of Grimkin.
Right.
And then I would start designing a faction. And I can't do that in an update without kind of doing...
It's a massive...
Kind of restarting.
That's
it's pretty massive, isn't it? Yeah. It's pretty massive.
Yeah, we talked about them on the weekend with the guys on Full Tilt, and I was like, I was just hoping that like Desolation would get updated to let you choose like the new terrain types, and suddenly it goes from an Arcana that no one ever plays to you probably see it picked like 80%
and it also took us the entirety of about 7 minutes to work out how to abuse it and make it broken. So
I think it would have to be this point. I think it would have to be pick and choose. I can see like a windswept forest. Like I can see specific types of terrain.
Yeah.
As opposed to just saying, and you can combine quicksand with windswept. No. That's not okay. I don't even think you can put a quicksand into play.
Well, you got there quicker than the 7 minutes it took us.
Yeah. So I think that there probably could be 1 or 2 additional terrain types added to it. That would be interesting. I could see a pool of acid being added to it. That would be cool. I could see a burning earth, but not a forest. So just rough terrain and fire being added to it. And I could see a windswept something being added to it.
Yeah. I think that'd be cool.
Those are all immediately reasonable.
Yeah, and it's not too breaking, and it's just like those. That's basically what we were talking about, wasn't it? I mean, was those slight elevations to make the Arcana that you don't really see. Like I've played Desolation a few times. I like playing with it against Sloane, and I just like bunker up this little army, and as soon as they move something forward, I stick a forest in front of all their guns, and we're like, thanks for coming. We'll see. We'll see you next time.
I sure hope you can see through these forests.
Yeah.
I still can't wait to get piggybacks on the table again to test out the new shield wall, because that's such a big change that's been made. Yeah, and the shadows coming back into play. Shadows coming back. Telling you now.
Cool. Right.
Yeah, the sisters. Oh my god.
Oh, they're looking good. Yeah. They're looking very sweet. Right. So I'm going to jump off Grimkin. I'll stop my fan. So, there's obviously he talks about the synergistic magic, and a bunch of casters, a bunch of factions are going to get it. Is the plan to have it? Every faction has a synergistic magic caster. Like we talked about it. I thought that there would be a couple that we could look at and go, all right, that makes sense if maybe Terminus could have it or the Child, but I'm not sure how deep it goes.
Yeah, so I tried to put it where it made sense. And I didn't necessarily try to put it on the thing that it would be best on.
Yeah.
Right? Like, synergistic magic is best on Lilith 2, but I put it on Lilith 1 in very intentionally, because I want her to get 1 or 2 extra focus.
Yeah.
Right.
Not 50, which is what she would have gotten if it was on Lilith 2.
Correct.
That was very intentional. I sat there and I looked at all 3 Liliths, and I'm like, one of these is getting synergistic magic. Which one? And then I kept on looking at Lilith 3 and going, why isn't anybody playing Lilith 3? She's amazing.
She is terrifying.
She is such an all or nothing caster. I mean, as if Legion isn't enough of an all or nothing faction. Yeah. She commits to something, and if she has one bad dice roll, or sometimes 2, he's just sitting out in the wind. Yeah. All or nothing.
So the answer
there
is
that.
Kind of. It's kind of come in potentially then, or
no. So not every faction was ever supposed to get it. Yeah. I believe my original statement was most factions, and I believe that is correct. Most factions did get at least 1. And just so everyone knows, as far as I'm concerned, Cephalix and Rulik are separate factions from Mercs. Yes, they have some carryover, but
that will be
as far as I'm concerned,
every Cephalix player will be cheering on hearing that, because they're so tired of being left out in the cold.
Yeah, and both Cephalix casters are pretty solid with all of these changes. They themselves got so few changes. Obviously, synergistic magic on one, but God, I am really looking forward to seeing some Cephalix on the table, because they are real interesting now.
Yeah, I love the aesthetic of them. They're just like this creepy, like just mass. So we've got a question about like characters. So obviously there's a bunch of character jacks, and beasts have all had obviously some very significant reductions. Do you want to focus more on bringing character beasts and jacks into the game as things progress with new models?
Yes. So if you're playing a specific style, like you're playing arm skew or def skew or POW, you're trying to get the alpha or something like that. There should be a character war beast or jack that you go, oh yeah, this one makes sense. This is the first thing in my list. Assuming it also fits your theme. Obviously not everything fits themes. And I did successfully put
the only Loki and Ghetto.
Yeah. And I specifically opened up Behemoth and Deathjack because they were both in only one theme. which was miserable because they don't have a bond. So I tried to be sure that they were all the non-bonded characters were in 2 themes.
Is Cankerworm in any themes? I think
he is in 1 theme. He has to be in 1 theme because it just says Warjacks.
Right, okay, yeah. So he must be in Black
I think
Industries.
He's just in that theme, yeah.
Okay, but he has a bond, so it's not quite as terrible.
Yeah, he can get into other places, which is important. If you have a bond, you can get into a lot of other places, so it's much easier to balance.
Yeah.
But because now I just assume that you're always with that one caster unless you're in this specific team list.
Right.
But yes, you should always want to take your bonded Warbeast. And if you don't, I feel like something is wrong, because they should effectively be 1 point cheaper than an equivalent non-character Warbeast.
Yeah.
And that was generally my goal going through, is that the characters felt cheap enough that you would always want to click on them when at least your bond is ready.
The reason I'm laughing now is the only caster in Legion I don't take Zuriel with is the twins.
Well, I don't know what to do for you. I don't know. Zuriel is one of the best character Warbeasts in the game. So
Zuriel's amazing.
I
love Zuriel. I just can't fit him into the list.
You need to try harder, Evan. Try harder.
There's nothing I could do to Zuriel to make Zuriel good enough to be in that list. Apparently,
I cannot ask or beg with a straight face for any help for Zuriel.
So I got one about something similar, I guess, where you're trying to fit things into different themes. Is obviously mercs. Mercs have just like grown and grown and grown. Like they were big when I started in Mark II. Are there any plans to allow mercs to be more involved in other factions, or is it only if you're doing like cross themes? Would you say? So like, is there like a point where you can start picking 2 friendly units, or do you think that throws the balance out a bit too much?
So what I want requisition options to be, at least with a few factions, especially like Signar, potentially low enough that you can feel like you can play out a theme. And the thing that you get for playing out a theme is get to play with those
with the extra stuff. Yeah. Oh,
right. So I want to keep it restrictive in theme, and hopefully I've opened the door just enough that some people can think of playing out a theme.
We literally just talked maybe like 10 minutes about this on the weekend with the guys in Iowa. And like I think we came to a balance where we said maybe if every faction has essentially an unthemed theme where you just get to choose one rec option, that's it, as your as your dip in, but you could choose mercs.
I would say the other way around, where you still need rec options and you get no other benefits. Like that's because 15 points down is a lot. Like it's a big hit.
If you're 5 points down,
closer to 12.
Yeah, if you're only 5 points down or 10 points down, and then you've got access to all these extra tricks and tools that the mercs that will play with your faction, I can see that
10 points is a 10 points is a Shadowhorn satire. That's a lot of points down.
It is a lot of points down, but I do think that there's some argument there. But I don't think I would implement it until there's a perfectly settled meta.
Yeah, you can see if it'll work.
So it would have to be 6 months from now, and I still don't even know if I would do it.
There you go, full tilt, guys.
That's fair.
6 months is your time. So talking about 6 months,
I just said I don't even know if I would do it.
I don't know.
I heard much less commitment than you did there.
No, I'm just giving them something to hold on to for the next 6 months, and they'll live in the future with no themes. So that's where they are.
I'll sit down with them with a commiserating glass of whiskey. I don't see it's not sounding good for them.
So talking about the future, do you think this, like, how it's been received? Obviously, you can't really tell, I guess, until 2, 3, 6 months down the line. But do you think this is going to be a kind of thing that you're gonna you want to repeat like once a year as just like an annual balance, or is it too much resources to do so?
To do this big of a thing?
Yeah, where you maybe go
never again.
Where you basically look at it on the same scale, but then do much more minor edits, basically, rather than do 60%. You might look at a big picture,
maybe
but do a lot less changes.
Looking at like 5% of the models, which is still a god-awful amount of models. But yes, that is certainly possible. The next time I would want to look at the game this widely would be if we were to ever do an edition shift.
Yeah,
right.
So I'm hoping that we never have to do that again. As far as the future, I wouldn't mind doing this again in a year. It would be much smaller in scope, maybe 5% of the models. I'm also going to be watching games very closely over the next 3 to 6 months.
Yeah.
And if something goes crazy and needs a 1 point increase to just tone it down, that's probably going to happen really quickly.
Oh, that's really good. That's
that
a really
makes
positive
sense.
move, yeah.
That makes a lot of sense.
So, and that we can't see every possible variation, and I'm 100% confident somebody will find and break something in this update.
Oh, yeah. Guaranteed. Guaranteed.
So, I am certainly not against increasing the point value of something if it goes crazy and doing it very quickly. I'm also going to be looking at the soul economy of the game and seeing where it lands, and then going back and looking at a few soul models.
I'm very interested in that because there were you clearly made quite a big push to try to bring souls back into the game.
Mm-hmm.
You brought back a lot of soul stuff. I thought you were quite conservative. I thought you were quite conservative on some of the help that Crix got. I had a conversation in my own head where I was far too many voices, basically looking at that and saying, right, I think that you're looking at the increase in souls is actually going to be quite a big help to Crix.
Well, I want to see how much of a help it's going to be. And the answer is, I can't know, because it depends on what list you're playing against so much.
Yes.
And that's the fundamental problem with things that are based on what your opponent brings, is I need to know what your opponent is bringing most of the time in order to balance them. So, Crix casters, there's quite a few of them. Terminus,
Asphyxious 2, yeah.
I think whatever Gatsby got it's Gatsby 2, I think, or is it Gatsby 3?
Gatsby 2, who throws out their Mortis with an AoE and picks up souls, yeah.
I think they're going to be fine. I think that soul gain mechanic is probably going to end up being enough, because it's so big and it's so certain.
It's so targeted,
because it's anywhere in control, right? So it's he can reach out really far with it, and it's a AoE, and it's 100%. You are absolutely getting those souls.
If it dies, you got a soul. That's it.
Yeah. I think that's going to be enough for him. But there's a lot of other casters where I need to know where their soul, their turn-to-turn any of their own special rules are generating the souls. Outside of that, how many souls they're getting, and then figure out where to put them. Denny 3 is obvious in that argument. It's obvious in that argument. The Sacred Vault is obvious in that argument.
I think Denny 3's got a bigger question of what does she actually do with her souls. But I've already seen you've been on social media talking about Denny. Yeah, but she just doesn't have much of a spell list to cast with.
That's true.
I know you're looking at her, so obviously that will take some time to work out.
But that's one of those big things that I kind of want to reconvene in 3 months, maybe a little bit longer, and figure out where these soul models are and if they need more help.
Yeah. That's super positive. Like you're talking about
exactly.
keep an eye on things as they evolve, having a look, check in again, like in a couple of months. It's like it's the sort of thing that I think the players really want to be like assured that you've got like a really good hand on the wheel, basically, which is super cool. I'm happy with that, definitely. So
definitely. If you are a player and you are thinking about building a spam list, be careful and don't spend a ton of your money on a spam list that might not exist in 3 months.
Yeah,
there we go.
Right?
Every time someone makes that claim every time someone gets that warning online, they say, well, no, you never heard it from an official source. Guys, you've just heard it from Privateer's lead designer. If you're spam listing because it's super powerful, you found an exploit, don't assume the designers aren't going to see it.
Yeah. Or don't do it if you don't have the disposable income. Don't get into debt.
Yeah.
If you've got the disposable income, please God, buy our models.
Yeah.
If you're getting by and you have, whatever, $100 of disposable income every month, don't do that to yourself.
Don't spend your kids' college fund on stalkers, kids.
Stalkers, the thing that'll never get upgraded.
Yeah, I already saw the meme list posted to me on Facebook yesterday. Like, guys, 10 Shadowhorns is pushing it. Don't do it yet.
Be careful. Be careful.
So got a couple of general game support questions to just blitz through quickly before the end section. So I want to talk to you about model availability. I know that there was a various deal for the Black Anchor stuff coming over to Europe, which changed. But you guys have made a big sort of inroad to making shipping and ordering direct from PP much easier for us Europeans and just outside of the US. Is that something that's going to continue? Are you looking to try and make it easier for us to get hold of stuff?
We are going to do our absolute level best, and the problem is that our level best is probably going to be direct ordering.
Yeah.
So that being said, the thing that I always suggest is talking to us directly. If you can get your game store to talk to us directly, it's going to make it so much better.
Yeah.
Because distribution is just messed up. And it has been before COVID, and now it's worse.
Yeah.
And it's not the answer that anybody wants, but it's the answer that I have.
Yeah, if that's the best option, then that's the best option. So so anyone that's watching is struggling to get stuff, talk to the people running your local stores and get them to reach out, or go online and just buy your 10 Shadowhorn Satyrs direct from PP. It'll be fine.
I mean, we definitely have a good shipping partner for the EU now. You'll be surprised by the shipping costs. They won't be nearly as high as you expect.
Yeah.
They'll obviously be at 100% MSRP because that's all we sell things at.
Yeah.
And then you've got to deal with your own country's tax. I always go insane when people blame us for VAT taxes because I'm like, no, sorry, you voted
your country.
that your country, nothing.
I mean that's perfectly fair. You are not a sovereign nation imposing taxes on.
It makes me miss the days where I worked for a Swiss company and our taxes were very, very interesting. So a couple of others to go through. Are you happy? So one of the people commenting said about how their local meta is struggling with the size of the game before, and now are expecting it to be a bit bigger. But at the same time, I know plenty of people that are really happy with the size of the game and are looking forward to getting new models on the table as well as what they were running before. So are you happy with the size of the models on the table, basically?
75 points is probably a tiny bit too big, but when I say a tiny bit too big, I mean one medium, one satyr. Exactly one satyr. Every armor needs to go one satyr down. No, but and 75 really is the largest game that people legitimately can play without just being like, let's throw off all the shackles and just do something crazy.
Yeah,
and if you're doing something crazy, that is up to you.
Yeah, you spend your entire day playing like a 500 point list. I've seen people do it, and I assume they've just all lost their minds after the first 3 hours have gone past.
It sounds amazing when you start setting it up, and about an hour and a half in, it's like, guys, this is silly.
That's when you're finishing deployment an hour and a half in, right?
Yeah.
It's very Twilight Imperium that way. Except that Twilight Imperium only gets better as people go slowly insane.
Yeah, I do love Twilight Imperium.
I will always play Twilight Imperium. If somebody breaks into my room at 2 a.m., I will swear at them profusely. But then I will play Twilight Imperium. So
yeah, I bought Tabletop Simulator, and one of the games to play it was to play Twilight Imperium, and I'm still not even actually downloaded it. I've just bought it on the Steam sale, at the start of COVID.
Oh wow!
I need to get around to that.
Getting enough people together is tough, even doing it online.
Yeah, I imagine.
It's such a time commitment. But to go back and to answer your question, we are looking at Steamroller. I am paying attention, and I'm very happy with 75 being the largest. The real question here is, do we need a consistently supported smaller format? And the answer is obviously yes. Brawl Machine is amazing. But do we need something between the two?
Yeah.
And I think that the answer is also yes, and I think it's 50 points. And I think Steamroller scenarios are going to handle 50 points very well. So in a few months, I plan to look at the tournaments that have happened. Obviously, Warfare Weekend coming up right away. And I'll be there, so I'll get to watch it. And I'm going to watch the games and see the time that they take. And I'm probably going to push a 60-minute, 50-point game a little bit harder on people. And potentially increase the 75-point game to an hour and 15 minutes. I
think that's a good. I definitely think the games. That has been my only complaint about size. I love the 75-point format. I do feel the hour side is actually a bit too short.
Yeah. And it's slightly difficult for me because I can play very, very nonsensically quickly. I've completed games when I still have 45 minutes, and I've played 4 turns. So I can play stupidly quickly because that's kind of just one of my weird skills that I have. So it's always hard for me to understand why people need an hour and 15 minutes. But I also know that it's true if too many games are going to time, and a lot of games are going to time right now. Yeah. So not like it's a pretty close to a third control
a lot.
Time in assassination.
That's a hell of a lot.
Yeah, and I also consider the anything that ends on the 7th turn to also be able to control. It's pretty close to that, and I'm fine with the time going down a little bit, but we can't increase the time of round too much. Increasing 30 minutes is already a lot, and we really have to pay attention to people's days.
Yeah. I quite like how War Table sort of events have done it with the deployment off clock, and that seems to be a good step towards it. So
that's another solution, but it's going to look like the same solution.
It amounts to the same thing that you're giving an hour and a half for the game.
Yeah. But now there doesn't have to be doing it this way, there doesn't have to be a TO that walks up to a table that's been setting up for 30 minutes and going, what the hell, guys? Come on, don't do this.
Call in.
There are other people around you that want to play.
Awesome.
Come on, man.
Yeah.
You know.
So on a related note, I know you were venting a little bit earlier before we got on the stream about this issue. But I think it's a nice one for you to just take some time and address on this platform. A lot. I've seen a number of people, and I'm going to try not to be dismissive of it and try give them the best form of the argument. But that have been claiming that, well, with so many models getting a points drop, you've effectively raised the size of the game. I'm going to stop talking there because it's hard for me to give it more credit than that. But
Yeah.
please take it away. And how do you feel about that?
Thank you for teeing that up for me. So that's not the argument that I've been hearing quite enough. It's not so much the size of the game is increasing, which it is to some extent. There is some armies got smaller, but most armies got at least a few points bigger. Which a few points is not a big deal. That's a single solo, no big deal. But there are some armies that went from like X number of points and then just got plus 20 because they were playing with nothing but the same model that was all terrible, and they just got 3 points per unit, something crazy.
Cephalix.
Armored Core, a lot of happy Armored Core players.
Yeah. In those armies, there's certainly the argument that those armies did get bigger, but in general, the game got about the size of a expensive solo, like a 6-point solo to an Archon, or at most a single unit, something like 13 points, generally speaking, which is okay. It's not the end of the world. I don't love that it happened, but it kind of was a byproduct of what I was going for. And what I was going for when I sat down was saying everything that stays the same point value is going up by half a point. And that was what went through my head. And then I said everything going down by 1 point is really not going down by 1 point. It's going down by a very small fraction of a point, about a half a point. And then the things that you're looking through and you see going down by 2 points is where I really was thinking these things need a buff.
Right.
So if I wanted something to stay the same, more or less, I either kept it at 0 points, no change, or negative 1 point. If I wanted them to become truly better, I gave them negative 2 points. What that means is that everything that didn't get a point drop effectively got a nerf. And that is true. And people need to acknowledge the fact that that's true. And that was entirely within my intent, right? So, but if I went in the opposite direction, I wouldn't have this where I just took that, the other 40% and increased their point values. I would have kind of a much worse problem where I couldn't do as much granularity in these point decreases as I was able to. The point decrease is so much easier to do and so much more targeted than point increases, because point increases leave everything that's bad the same, whereas point decreases lets me change the level of each individual model that is underperforming. Yeah. So that's why I went in that direction.
Yeah, we talked about it a little bit earlier and said things like if you looked at like the popular Doom Reaver lists, not a lot has changed there. Some points have gone up when you bring in like a couple of Archons, but generally they've got a little bit of a tweak to their theme that's just like a nice ability, but the points have stayed very similar. And then you look at your Jacks and go, well, do I play an underplayed Jack and I now have some points spare? And it balances out, and you go, yeah, there is enough change where things have stayed the same, and those things that have stayed the same were because they were at the top of the game, right? So maybe Negation Angels aren't cheaper, and you can't take them as rec options, and maybe Doom Reavers aren't cheaper, and then you suddenly go, well, if 80% of the game has got cheaper, but the things at the top haven't, well, yeah, like you said, it's effectively a nerf.
It's effectively a nerf, yeah.
Yeah, which is, but still allowing you to take all this new stuff rather than locking you into a more restrictive list, which is, I think, a really positive move for him. So, cool. I'm really happy.
Yeah.
So we've got a couple of just like closing questions for you about the future.
All right.
So, are there any more plans to produce more sort of story-based content?
Yes, I have a story about the Felgoth, which is the Orgoths. So, the Felgoth, if you didn't read the IKRPG, the book, the Witchfire, the latest Witchfire, they are in some ways connected to the Orgoth. but they're an infernal order that is different than an Enochian order. It has a bit of a different command structure and includes a lot of Orgothian people, but isn't necessarily synonymous with the Orgoth. I'm going to be doing a fun narrative where you guys will uncover clues about the coming invasion that everybody already knows is happening because we already said that was happening. But, you kind of already know the punchline, but you get some interesting stuff along the way.
You get to build the drama, right?
Yeah.
I like that.
It's kind of unfortunate. Sorry. It's kind of unfortunate that we had to destroy the punchline of the Orgoth coming just because we needed to say that, hey guys, there's something coming down the road.
Yeah.
Please don't think that Wargaming is dead. Because it's not. It's super not. We just need time to do the thing that we're doing, which is Orgoth, and they're gigantic, and we've been playtesting them, and they're really cool. And I'm really looking forward to people seeing models because you guys are going to see models real soon.
Oh, that was firmly in this section. Is there anything else you can tell us about the Orgoth? Is there anything about the story or how they're going to look? I know a lot of the artwork, they looked kind of like sort of almost like fantasy Viking-y. Is that similar to what you're going to come out with?
Yep, they still have a bit of that feel. They're Orgoth in general are very tall humans. If you didn't know, they're usually about 8 feet tall, so they're very similar, and they're usually pretty buff. So they're very similar in body mass to a Trollkin. So you're going to see something very Viking oriented, but kind of with an update into the Steam Age.
Yeah.
So there are a lot of really cool things I've seen. I think we have all the concept art at this point, which is great because I get to go look at it. You guys don't.
Show off.
But we should be seeing some models pretty soon, and we'll actually get to see some stuff. Pretty soon. And when I say pretty soon, I mean very early 2022. I don't mean.
You don't mean
before
Warfare
the
weekend.
Yeah.
So yeah. I'm going to push my luck with the Orgoth invasion. To me, that feels like the perfect time to say, well, this is something that the Enochian Infernals would push back against. Is that the perfect opportunity to introduce a fourth or maybe even a fifth Infernal Master?
We will never close something off for the future, but we're pretty okay with where Infernals are right now. Probably not any time in the immediate future.
Right.
Think of immediate future as about a year. Is
okay.
when I'm saying that. So it won't be for a while because we've got the Orgoth coming. But you are correct that the Felgoth and the Enochian orders do not like each other.
Yeah. And I still think it's a brilliant idea, and it's yours for free. I won't charge a cent.
I know what the release schedule is for a year, and I know that there's no Infernal Master.
There's no other Infernal Master. Yeah. Ah, well, hope's dashed.
I'm not sad for Evan, but I'm sure somewhere
you're not sad.
Someone's got a tiny violin and playing for all those Romodamus players with their extra horror points.
Yeah.
I think that kind of covers most of the questions we had. We've gone. We're coming up to like a bit over certainly what we were aiming for. Thanks very much again for coming on. Thanks for giving us hopefully a good chunk of information to play with. I know lots of people are delving deep and it's like the dwarves in Moria. They're seeing what crazy crap they can pull out of the earth with all sorts of factions. It's really nice. I don't know anyone that's playing the game at the moment that isn't excited and isn't basically building some sort of bullshit to put on the table against their friends. And
so I'm really looking forward to Warfare Weekend. The one thing I'm not looking forward to is because there was so little time between the update and Warfare Weekend is that there's probably going to be a lot more unpainted models. But other than that, it's an unfortunate necessity of this world that we're currently in. But gosh, I am really looking forward to seeing what people do. Definitely got to take some time to wander those tables.
Yeah, and there's
that would be really exciting.
And I think the guys Minority Report are streaming, or there's definitely like some streaming. Of
I know
games
there's some streaming going on.
Cool.
I know that I'm not in charge of it, but I will almost certainly be a talking head on some of it.
Yeah, that's really
Right.
cool. It's gonna give us some good stuff to watch over the weekend, which would be nice. So yeah.
Yeah. And thanks so much. Thanks so much for coming by. It was fantastic to get to meet you, and I think everyone it just feels that much better that like the game is definitely being shepherded closely, and it's a great feeling that
it's really,
it's in good hands.
Really
if there's a problem,
place around.
it'll be picked up.
Yeah. All right, guys. Well, it was lovely talking with you.
And we'll catch you. We'll catch you later. And everyone's watching, thanks for joining us. And obviously, you can feed the social media gods as you usually do, and make some of our time worthwhile. Make us feel better about our lives. But thanks very much, Faye. And hopefully you have a great weekend. And if people are there, go and say hi and say and see if you can see if you can see what ridiculous mercenaries or trolls Faye to bring in with her. Cracking. Well, thank you very much indeed. Yeah. And we'll leave it. Good night.
Right. Good night.
Bye bye.